I'm Cliff Nielsen. I'm the stage manager for Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, and I'm the set construction chief. The set of Sweeney Todd is so important to the story, the characters, and the things that have to happen. The set becomes almost another character in the story itself.
I'm fine, Joanna, I'm fine.
The initial design came from Willie Sumner, who not only gave us a model of his ideas for the set, but a measured drawing. You start with a concept, and then it builds from there. And the more people you get involved, especially the brilliant people that we got involved with this, it grows and grows and grows to become much more than the original model was. Normally we build almost everything on the stage, but we knew that that wasn't going to happen. So we started about a month early building this set in an off-site location. That included the framework for the cube, the framework for the top of the cube, the platform for the revolve, and the barber's chair, which had to be welded in order to make it strong enough. It's made out of metal. Then we transported all of these pieces to the theater when we got the stage, and we started putting these things together and then creating the rest of the set. Our original plan for the revolve was a Lazy Susan turntable with wheels under it that we would rotate around on the stage. Our stage, like most stages, is not completely level, so the wheels were going to make a lot of noise and they were going to take a lot of wear and tear. Neil Oliver, one of our brilliant workers here, came up with the idea of turning the wheels upside down and putting the wheel on the stage with the wheels pointing up, and then the revolve would just be fairly smooth and it would float across all these wheels.
It's like a skate.
We ended up buying 40 casters that are all exactly the same, and we used 35 of those in 3 rings, an outer ring, a middle ring, and a very center ring. And by doing that, we're able to push this structure, which probably weighs 2,000 pounds, with just 2 people, although we use 4 people just for safety. One of the things we had to gain was the idea of building up the stage in order to meet the revolve that the cube is on, and that was not in the initial plans. It became a bigger project than we originally thought it was going to be. We had no directions for any of this, so a lot of this was we knew what we wanted to end up with, and we just had to work our way through getting to that point. So we'll have room over here for the wet bar.
Yes,
Right.
as we have to have room for the wet bar.
The TV, we could just put the TV over here. I don't think we can get a really big screen. Because we had so many people really jumping in there, we were able to get to the point early enough in the production so that the cast would have enough time to really rehearse on this set before the show opened. Every time the cube turns, we have 4 people that actually step out, try to be as inconspicuous as possible, and post themselves based on their cues, and then they turn the cube. Sometimes the cube turns clockwise, sometimes counterclockwise, sometimes it turns a quarter of a turn or a half a turn or an eighth of a turn. So we have cue sheets that we've made up to list specifically which turns we're going to make and where we're going to stop. For the angled turns, we've bike taped down on the floor. In the first act, we know that one color is the first turn and another color is the next turn, so that we always get these turns exactly the same, because it has to be exactly the same in order for the actors to be able to understand where they're going to go. But we have 4 people who do it. They each go to the same position. Each time they make the turn, they huddle before every turn back underneath the stage and discuss exactly and remind each other exactly what that turn is going to be and where they're going to end up. Then there's the big turn at the end, the fast turn, and we call it danger circle, because as the stairway comes around, it has a good chance of clipping somebody and hurting them. So we have rehearsed danger circle a lot of times, so the cast knows where they can go and where they can't go, and the crew knows how to move this around.
The Dean and Barber of Fleet. Street.
In the story, when Sweeney chokes Pirelli, he hides the body in a trunk. So we have to get Pirelli in the trunk. Our Pirelli is 6'4", and we put him in a really tiny trunk. But there's no bottom to the trunk. It's completely open. We have a ladder that goes up inside the trunk, and one of us is inside the trunk so that when Pirelli starts to come into the trunk, we can reach up, grab his feet, make sure his feet hit the top bar of the ladder, and then he physically steps himself down the ladder. So we get a rather large person into a fairly tiny trunk.
Senor! And like you said, I reminded you! No! Appointment! Taylor, where did he go?
At the end, our actor can come right on down the ladder, and he basically hangs out inside the cube for a couple of songs before it's turned to the point that he can actually escape. Later on, in the second act, the character of Joanna has to go into the same trunk. She's a much smaller person, so we have created what we call the Joanna shelf, which during intermission we take the ladder out and we put this shelf in that slides into place so that she can step down onto this shelf and fold herself into the trunk and then come back up right away.
It's a Cliff in a box.
Well, the lighting inside is all battery operated LED lights that are operating off of a couple of look like car batteries, and they are all controlled from the light booth, so it's basically all wireless. During the last scene, the door to the oven has to open and it has to look like an oven. Our technical genius, Chris, actually runs into the cube with a smoke machine, and he smokes between the door and the rest of the cube. We have curtains hung, so he uses a smoke machine and puts smoke in there, and there's red lights that come on so that when they open the door, the smoke billows out. When Lovett gets thrown in, because there's not much room, and she's a great actress and she puts everything into that, and she's going to run right into part of the structure. So I actually go in there and stand behind the curtain, so every night when she gets thrown in, I grab a hold of her and keep her from hitting something that she's going to get hurt from.
Just keep living it, really living
It would have been nice if we could have found a Barber chair. Routinely, we build most things here out of wood, but the decision was made fairly early that this had to be built out of steel to make it strong enough so that it would last through all the rehearsals and all the shows. I talked to George Savitz, who's an engineer, and asked him to design a chair, and he gave us specific measured drawings, schematics of a chair that was made out of tubular steel and welded together. Then Neil, Oliver, and I took that, we cut the metal, and Neil did all the welding, and I helped him with grinding and things like that. And we put together the framework of the chair and then started testing for the seat drop.
All right, drop the chair.
Then we upholstered it. I've never upholstered a chair before, so we upholstered it with some vinyl leather-like material, and it moves on 3 wheels. One leg of it is fixed to the stage on a pivot point, so the chair always moves in exactly the same position and always goes to exactly where we want it to go to, making it much more safe for the cast who gets to ride the chair.
I'm fine, Joanna, I'm fine.
We ended up using 2 wheels underneath the seat that are welded to a bar that just slides forward and the seat drops down. And that is a fairly abrupt drop. Neil went and got an actuator that he put underneath it so it slows the drop down. So the heaviest person will drop fairly easy, and the lightest person doesn't drop, really doesn't even set off the trigger. And it's set so that when it drops exactly to the bottom of the trap door that comes up, so it creates one straight slide. Most trap doors are hinged at one end and just drop. But in order to make this slide safe and work with the chair, Neil decided that he would put the hinge farther up the door so the back end of the door actually rises as the other end of the door drops. This creates a slide that exactly matches the seat, so they slide all the way down that trap door.
Where is she?
The top of the trap door is covered with a laminate flooring that we got, that the whole top of the cube is covered with. It 2 things it does: it camouflages the trap door so the audience doesn't see the trap door. The other thing is it makes the trap door slippery enough so that the cast will slide on that door without getting splinters. And they slide down into a platform that has 12 inches of foam on it, so they're always cushioned.
Benjamin Barber!
The trapdoor takes 3 people at a minimum inside the cube to work, plus Neil up on top, Sweeney, who controls the chair. So when he stomps on the floor, we have brakes that are on the side that we manually pull up, and that releases the door to drop down.
If this sags, like let it go, if that sags down, I can't get them over the back hump, particularly when we have George Oliver in there. So these will have to be held tight.
Particularly with somebody on it, the backside is the more important, because if it dips when I'm rolling George or somebody around, I can't get him up over the hump, so we can't kill him. And I can't say, hey, push the clamp in harder!
I think it'll add a new depth of character.
There's no doubt.
New level.
Is that better? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Get that soft
Okay,
tail
put-
in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was good.
We've got the tail in the shoot out.
Okay, Alex,
Yeah.
lean forward.
Oh, I gotta lean forward. While I'm still crouched, right?
Yep.
There's a 3rd person behind whose job is to push the trapdoor back up manually. It would be nice to have been able to do this all with one mechanism, but beyond the scope of what we needed to do. It's human nature to want to lift your head up and look at where you're going. There's only about this much room between their nose and the edge of the platform.
You're gonna stay lean back and just don't flex forward, or you're gonna be
Flick forward.
don't lean forward. Don't
Because your
do
natural
this,
instinct will be
okay?
to flex forward.
That's your natural instinct. Don't keep your legs braced, because you're gonna sort of squat into it. There's foam down there. You're tall enough that if you don't squat, you're just gonna be sticking out of the top. So, not dead yet.
So they have to trust they're always going to go to the same spot. So they have to keep their head back a little bit, but not back too far, because then they're going to bump their head as they go down. So they have to hold their head in fairly neutral position and just trust that they're always going to slide to the same spot. And they've done an outstanding job of doing that.
And he lives! My little lamb, my pet, Johanna. You stay, Johanna.
community theater always challenges us to do something that we've never done before. For the actors, it challenges them to do a character they've never done before. For the stage crew and the technical crew, we're always challenged with lighting and sound and complexities of the stage. But when you put all these people together as a team, you find that you can come up with something more than you ever thought you could do. We have done a lot of things on the stage that are really pretty fantastic, but I don't think anything matches what we've done here.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Ready? Yes. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1.
Now that's hard.
2, 1, go.
I got a new house if you didn't make it.
Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. Mike's okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Yep, don't, yeah, you stuck your arm out. Don't stick your arm out. Yeah, she's good. Yeah, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Very good. 1, 2, 3, go. He's alive! Well, then do it again! Oh, how the times have changed.
I heard you that joke, by the way.
Wait, give me it.
Okay, you ready, Mrs. Lovett?
No, but go
Screen,
ahead.
help the screen, help the screen, help
1,
the screen.
go. Relax your body, okay? Stay focused. 3, 2, 1, go.
That's how you die!
Have charity towards the world, my pet.
Yes, I know, my love.
We'll take the customers that we can get.
High born and low, my love.
We'll not discriminate great from small, no, we'll